Blessing. Good morning.
Good morning, Senna.
I hope I
How are
didn't
you?
add a Hajia that's not supposed to be there.
Oh, you can call me Shamima Muslim. Hajia, it does not matter.
And it's nice to have you on the line this morning.
I'm happy to be joining you.
First, let's start with the launch of the Code of Conduct for Public Officers. How big a deal is this for the president?
For him, it is a big deal. It's a big deal because, even though this is a revised version, it's a stricter version, and it has a stricter approach to its enforcement. Because of the experience His Excellency has had over his public life, especially in his first tenure as president, and the fact that he now is on a legacy term, which term is expected to deliver a huge mandate. He himself is pressured to ensure that his appointees play by the book in order that he can perform the way that he has promised the people of Ghana that he will perform and deliver the research agenda. So it's a big deal to him.
And I'm wondering what he intends to achieve with this code of conduct.
Right. Senna, during the campaign period, one of my tools for analysis and to invite Ghanaians to assess in terms of coming to a decision on who is a better leader for Ghana was to ask them to assess the character of the administration as evolved around the conduct of the appointees. Because really is the individual conduct that will eventually determine how an administration looks and feels like. So people can now say that the Nana Akufo-Addo government was very arrogant, they were very corrupt, they were nepotic, they were, non-responsive and insensitive to the plight of Ghanaians, and that they were largely incompetent. These are all descriptions we use to describe our experience of an administration. And so if we say we are a different government under the leadership of His Excellency, what it means is that Ghanaians must experience the government differently. The feel of the government must be different. The look of the government must be different. And the conduct of all members of government must be positively different. So the values contained in the code is supposed to align all of us, because sometimes you make assumptions that people understand what they should do, but they usually don't. Some don't have the information, some don't have the experience to see the loopholes and to see the traps. They don't have the experience. Some have not worked in the public service before, so they are not aware of the various operational standards and modalities and expectations. And so if a president has appointed you into the position, it is his duty to clothe you with information and knowledge and guidance so that you can perform and avoid mistakes that might be fatal and that would lead to a number of actions against you, including, requests for you to make a public apology, or you receiving a formal reprimand, or you being asked to resign, or suspended, or your appointment terminated. These are all the various options of sanctions against any one of us that find ourselves in breach of any one or two or more of these codes of standards without any justifiable grounds.
Now that it has been launched, the code of conduct, um, and I'm wondering if every appointee gets who gets a copy of this.
All appointees, if you have received a green letter from the president, you are expected to comply because he has appointed you. So you have a responsibility to meet his expectations. So everybody, ministers, deputy ministers, presidential staffers, CEOs, deputy CEOs, heads of, institutions that have been appointed by the president, they are expected to go by the code. Members of Council of State even.
Oh, so all of them will get copies of this
Yes,
and are supposed to go by them.
yes, please.
You said it's stricter. On what basis do you say it's stricter? What are the sanctions in there?
So I've just repeated some of the sanctions that you stand to receive. So you may be asked to do a public apology. Depends. So if you go and offend a group of people without just cause, you may be expected to render a public apology. You may also receive a formal reprimand if you breach some aspects of it. So I'll quickly go through the standards. You may be asked to resign if your conduct is in high breach. You may be suspended, or you may have your appointment terminated fully if you find yourself in any action that even borders on the criminal. Your appointment will be first terminated, and then the state institution enjoined with the powers to prosecute criminal matters would actually take steps to prosecute you if your conduct is found to have been, criminal. So I've also just been explaining that people should not see as the code of conduct as as a protective tool to appointees. Yesterday, some people said, oh, there are other institutions that have powers to also, vet the behavior of public office holders, because really, they may be government appointees, but they have become public office holders, and the Civil Service and the Public Service Act and all these other existing institutions that play different roles in enforcing existing policies have responsibility, and those they are not stopped. So, for example, the Ghana Police Service is not stopped from arresting any appointee that they find to be in breach of the laws of Ghana. Do you understand it?
Yes, yes.
And those processes, the Attorney General may decide to prosecute any member of government found to have contravened our procurement laws, for example. So the code is our own internal mechanism of aligning appointees. So we don't plead ignorance. So we know the values that must guide us, the standards that must guide our conduct and behavior, and to, as much as is humanly possible, to comply with them.
I see. And yesterday, I also realized the president took a step. It was handled by your boss in a way that there were 2 vehicles that were donated to him. He declared those vehicles and then handed them over to the states. Those are gifts that were given to him. Is it to say this is the standard he expects of those of you who are holding public office? That if I bring Hajia some basket of goodies, Hajia has to declare and then hand it over to the state?
There will be guidelines on what gifts you can accept without declaring them, and what gifts you must declare, and what gifts will remain the property of the state upon the exit of that position. There will be those guidelines, because it is one of the key rules. The monetary threshold and when you must declare it are all in the guidelines. And of course, the president needed to set the example because we are in this past where a certain fraud matter was misrepresented to the public, and it caused a lot of disaffection for that administration. So right now, there are some things that will be done publicly, so the public is in the know of it. And he has since handed it over to the state, and the state will add it to the pool of vehicles because he has received those gifts in his capacity as the president of Ghana, not as John Mahama. And so he must, forward those gifts to the state.
Well, yeah, your gift is your gift too.
Hey, you want trouble? You want to protest? What are they giving you the gift for? So vouchers and other things, little things that are below the threshold, nobody would say that receipt of those ones are expected to influence your decision in some way. Okay. And so those limits are very reasonable. And it's not a Ghana thing. It's a good governance thing. In many advanced, countries, there are gift registries. Everything that comes to a public officer's office is registered. So if it meets if it's below the threshold of you keeping it, because if it's a food, if it's or something like that, you cannot keep food, isn't it? So the guidelines are just to guide us, so we'll protect ourselves from unnecessary influence peddling, so we can do our work to the best interest of Ghana. And ultimately, in the eyes of the Ghanaian people, we would have positioned the NDC government as the most sensitive government and the best alternative to govern this country. And it should be able to stand us in a very good stead to be successful in multiple other election cycles. So I keep telling all of us appointees, as well as members of our party, that we must look beyond the 4 years, because there's every much possibility, to the extent that the NPP continues to make themselves a nuisance to the people of Ghana. There's every real possibility that if we did our best with God on our side, 2028, 2032, even beyond, might be an easy win for us.
Two questions. Who will enforce this? Who will be responsible for enforcing this?
The Chief of Staff office.
The Office of the Chief of Staff.
Yes, working in collaboration with the Office of the President.
Subsequently, my conversations with civil society, I also spoke to the former Auditor General, Mr. Daniel Domelevo. They point to a particular bill, Conduct of Public Offices Bill. Is the administration aware of that?
I reckon so.
Okay. Because they feel that whilst there is a law that governs the actions of the members of the NDC administration led by John Dramani Mahama, when you leave office, the next if the NDC ever leaves office, the next administration that will come after, which is not from your party, can decide to jettison this. But if you pass this law and include some of these provisions, strict provisions in them, it will bind every other person that works in public office. I don't know if you've heard.
Yes, I think that particular bill was laid before. I'm not too sure of the timeline, but it's been in the public domain for quite a while. So again, while we go through a conversation around legalizing the public conduct of public officers through the instrument of a legislation, we are forming government. And we, as a government, under the leadership of His Excellency, needs to be interested in how his appointees are behaving. So any future government who comes is well within their rights if they say that the NDC's code does not sit with them, especially if it's a different part. Maybe the values we have espoused in this code is not their values. So maybe they are a government that encourages officials to purchase state assets. So, for example, this document will not work for them. Again, this internal document does not stop any other action or advocacy for into the future to have a more legalized framework that would spell out, what the good conduct is, what the breach is, and what offense occasions as a result of the breach, and then what sanction or punishment will be applied. So it does not preclude the conversation to happen in that regard. And into the future, if His Excellency finds the process positive, I'm not sure he will reject it. So, but for now, this is our code to guide us as appointees as we interface. In a lot of these institutions, they have their guidelines anyway and rules. So it will just be reinforcing those internal guidelines. So for example, many institutions have their travel policies. We don't expect to see a marked departure of what our expectation in our code is from what pertains in some of these institutions. But we expect our appointees. So maybe you're a CEO of a certain company that says that CEOs should travel by business class. But your president has told you, all his appointees, in this era of austerity, where things are hard and we're asking Ghanaians to tighten their belt, your president who has appointed you has told you that all appointees of a certain level cannot travel by business class. You have to decide. You, as the appointee, must decide who you go with. The president will expect that you go with his code, because his code saves your organization. Struggling organizations who are paying business class tickets to CEOs does not make sense to me, personally. And I should think that all of us must sacrifice a little bit, especially in this time, to rebuild, to save. A lot of the SOEs are in red. And as we're speaking, a deep dive assessment is being done. Some of them may be let go because they are just resource gatherers. Because of all of these things, you cannot be not posting any profit, but your welfare issues are like somebody who is very healthy. So that's a clear example. For some of the aging entities, they will say that per their internal documents, CEOs are supposed to travel by business class, and yet you've never posted any profit in the past how many years? That is not conscionable. So if you are a new government appointee in that institution, we don't expect you to go and do business as usual.
I see. And Hadia, because I care about you so much, have you declared your assets?
I have, my dear brother.
Fantastic. So you do not fall into the bracket of those who forfeit?
There wasn't a lot to declare anyway.
Oh, okay. So you'll not be donating 4 months' salary to?
No. I will not at all.
I see.
But I'll be donating one.
Yes, that's...
So all appointees are also, by example, expected to donate 1 month of their salary to the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, also known as Mahama Care. So the unfortunate thing with the sanctioned appointees is that they are forfeiting 3 months, including the 1 month voluntary donation by all of us. So theirs become 4 months, and all of us is just a month.
Have you seen the numbers of appointees who haven't declared the asset?
No, I don't have that information, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot. And the appointments are even still ongoing.
Okay.
So there are quite a few that were appointed after the 31st deadline. So naturally, they shouldn't be included in this bracket. They should be given a reasonable time to quickly also go and file their assets.
And I also realize the president has issued a further. So, aside the sanction that you're donating 4 months of your salary, the 1 month for all appointees and the extra 3 months, the president says if you don't still declare by tomorrow, you risk losing your job.
Yes, yes, because if it is giving you all the time, now you have been in opposition for 8 years, what are your assets that you can? The form is a very simple form. So you are expected to indicate what assets, whether they are farms, their accounts, you have jewelry, gold, vehicles, buildings, land. You're just supposed to state all of those kinds of things. There's not anything odious there.
Wait, because talking to Mr. Daniel Domelevo, I got the impression that the breach of this particular aspect of a constitution is prevalent, not only with political appointees. He said even in the judiciary, as for them, they breach it constantly. But so why is the president bothering his appointees when everybody else is breaching it?
Well, the president wants a new chapter. And he's coming to the equity table asking all of us to build this Ghana we want together. His hands must be clean so that his spirit will be light. And the favor of God will shine upon him because God will bear testimony that he had the good heart and the good intention for this country. So you are right. There are many public officers who do not know that they are expected to file their asset declaration forms, many of them, especially the private entities. Many of them didn't know that they are supposed to, that the law is. So that a lot of public education needs to be done. They don't comply. So you see what we keep saying, even the judiciary, that you're supposed to be the enforcer of our laws, you're not complying. You're not complying. That's why the perceptions are growing that the judiciary is not, conducting itself above reproach. Human institutions as they are, we don't expect perfection, but we must not use actions to further deepen the negative sentiment against an institution like the judiciary. And today, the group of people under whose hands the judiciary has come to its knees in the public eye, the judiciary has faced a lot of strict criticism. The group of people, the New Patriotic Party, whose actions served to reduce the image and the grandstanding of our judiciary, are today the ones on the street saying that they are protesting to save the judiciary. You see the preposterousness of their position. That's why I keep saying that they don't seem to have learned any lesson at all that their defeat was meant to teach them. But, I understand that Ghanaians are who they are and they can read between the lines. And I'm sure in 2028 they will be punished for these very irresponsible positions and actions that they are currently taking.
Is that the position of government on the petition that was presented yesterday? They demonstrated and are asking you to take a second look at the suspension of the Chief Justice. It seems, even from listening to Mr. Tandugbe, you are saying that we are following the law.
Mm-hmm. So I think is a position of government was.
Is that the position of government that we are following the law? There's nothing we can do about what you're asking for.
Senna, has the president breached any constitutional provision that grants him the discretion to take an action to suspend the judiciary with the advice of a Council of State that starts independently on petitions that came to the president that were sent to the Chief Justice as directed by the Constitution, and the Council of State sitting on the matter, determining that there's a case to be answered by the Chief Justice and advising the President to ask the Chief Justice to step aside while investigations into the matter is determined and the Chief Justice appears before the committee to make her case, after which a report and recommendations will be sent back to the Council of State for the President to act upon. I mean, in all of this, can you say that there's been any, action that has been taken with malice, without fairness, without conduct, that the actions of the President has been capricious? You cannot say that. No reasonable, fair-minded Ghanaian would say that. But we don't expect the NPP to accept this position because it is not in their interest. What is worrying and curious is that they seem to have set themselves as the greatest advocates for the Chief Justice. And they have now further politicized the matter of the Chief Justice and further deepened perception that the Chief Justice was doing their bidding. You see, it doesn't help. The optics of the experience we have gone through over the years, including the ability of the Chief Justice to empanel a Supreme Court bench within record time, determine a politically sensitive matter in the shortest space of time in our history, that triggered persons like Professor Kweku Azar, who has been consistent in his criticism of different governments, who is today hell-bent individually. As for him, he even wants the CJ to go. These are independent watchers of our democracy, of our governance, of our judiciary, who are reading copiously about ways in which we must strengthen the judiciary, who today believe that the judiciary has not conducted in itself well, especially at the high level. So these matters are sitting in the minds of the majority of Ghanaians. And that's why the Global Info Analytics, survey it did that asked Ghanaians about what they think about the case of the Chief Justice had majority of Ghanaians believing that perhaps this Chief Justice should go. It's so sad. I mean, as a woman, and knowing also that there are very few men in this position, when we find ourselves in this position, we must try to live above reproach. Nobody will doubt the competence of the Chief Justice. She's had a very rich public life. But unfortunately, the New Patriotic Party didn't help the judiciary and didn't help the cause of the Chief Justice. And today, this is the deep public perception about her administration and the way she can actually, without consultation with her colleagues, send a list of individuals who should be promoted. So these are all breaches, not me who is saying, not you, Senna, who is saying, but the lawyers themselves who have come to say that didn't follow due process. So if the Chief Justice herself is not following due process, how do you want a president to stop an action that requires him to follow a certain process to its logical conclusion? The president didn't make the prima facie determination. The president didn't bring about the petition, and so could not have had any interest in this matter.
But they are suggesting that, well, it's a matter of politics. One, they also point to the Council of State and say it's predominantly NDC. So, of course, they are perpetuating an agenda on behalf of the NDC. And secondly, they also say the president has a power under the Constitution, Article 146(11), to revoke the suspension at any point in time. And they want him to exercise that power.
Why should he? Why should he? The NPP believe themselves to be a special group of people who must always be obeyed. There was a point, she who must be obeyed. The NPP is a party both in opposition and power who must always be obeyed, right? Even when independent institutions have found that they who must be obeyed are the group of people who have been wholly responsible for the fastest deterioration of all our governance institutions. They who must be obeyed, the NPP, that the Afrobarometer report have told us, especially in the last 8 years, have seen to the massive deterioration of trust in our public institutions, including the judiciary. They who must be obeyed, who by their actions of packing the courts is today the cause of the judiciary's problem, the tinkerings they engaged in. They who must be obeyed, who clamped down on civic activism, who rounded up young people who were protesting and demonstrating, they are exercising their rights as citizens, not spectators, as they were invited by the former president, Nana Akufo-Addo, who caused these young people to be rounded up, manhandled, terrorized, traumatized, kept in custody for weeks, and actually looked on while they were being prosecuted in the courts because they dared to come out and criticize the government of the day. Have you seen the mass departure? The same group of people got up to say they're going to do a demonstration on the Galam, say that the young people did the demonstration on and were arrested and thrown into dark, cells. The same group of people were allowed their freedom to go on their very miserable demonstration because the public saw through their hypocrisy and their double standards. And they were allowed to conduct their demonstration without any attack on them. The same group of people and their leaders yesterday shamefully could walk to the front of the Jubilee House to submit a petition asking the president to excuse retaliatory politics. They know, so they can call it retaliatory politics because they know they engage in it. We don't know it. His Excellency is not of their cut and is not of their stock. But he, as has been promised to the people of Ghana, as has been demanded for the people of Ghana, whilst leading justly, would demand the strictest accountability from every member of the previous administration who have been found legitimately to have questions to answer. That accountability will come without fear, without favor, no matter whose ox to be God, but underlining principle. As the Attorney General also keeps saying, fairness and justice is what will always guide the actions of His Excellency. Not malice, not retaliation, even though some people might think they deserve a bite of their own bitter pill. But His Excellency keeps reminding us that if we are a different government, of a different character, we must not fall into the same traps of the people who Ghanaians today abhor their politics. So we should be able to do the right thing, the right way, and it will yield the same right result. And that is what His Excellency is doing.
Great. And help me initiate my next discussion. When you're counting 120 days, are you starting from, did you start from 8th or 7th?
For me, the 7th was the day he was sworn in, and he started his work on the 7th, because after 7th he met leaders of different countries and all of those things. Someone was telling me yesterday, he started work on 8th. I said, no, he actually started work on the 7th. Immediately he saw his oath, his various oaths of office. He was the president of Ghana. He didn't go home and sleep. He started working, engaging, with people. So 7th January is our 120 day in office.
So tomorrow.
7th May.
Tomorrow will be 120 days in office.
Yes.
There was a social contract that was signed when you walk into office. Nobody asked you for it. When we were coming to office, you came and wrote the things that we should look at to assess you after 120 days.
So far, so good. Then we've been able to achieve a substantial number of our promises. In fact, as I speak with you, 18 of the promises we made have been fully done, and 7 are in various stages of completion. Of the 7 that are in progress, it is as a result of the fact that there are other institutions that must play different roles. Some include laying new pieces of legislation. Some include rationalizing a whole tax system. In the case of the COVID-19 levy, for instance, because of our current IMF program, we need to work with them to exit the COVID towards the end of this year, when we would have done the rationalization of our VAT system and then our other, tax components. So COVID will go, but all the 3 other levies have all been removed, as you have reported on. So of the remaining 7 that are in progress, all activations have already started. So there's no single promise that we made that we have not started anything on, none at all. 18 done, 7 in progress. And that is not shabby at all. I think that's way above average.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Shamima Muslim is a journalist by training, deputy presidential spokesperson, speaking to us this morning on a range of issues. SM.
Sena. Sen komobon bebre na akoso.
Yes.
Edifi dom level.
Yeah.
I said